Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to do another episode of Movie Spotlight. And Movie Spotlight today is going to be one of my all-time favorite zombie movies, if not my favorite. It's kind of a juggle between that and the first two Romero movies. But this movie is Lucio Fulci's Zombie. Now, to give a little background on this movie before we actually go into any of the stuff about the actual film, the movie was greenlit to be an Italian sequel, which was actually very common back then. An Italian sequel to the American film Dawn of the Dead. Now, in Italy and in most foreign markets, that movie was marketed as Zombie 2 because the original zombie was the name zombie, at least in this case in relation to Zombie 2, is that um, Zombie 1 is actually George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. That's just the name that they gave it in a lot of foreign markets, including Italy, which is why they named Fulci's film Zombie. Now, when they exported that film to the United States, they just dropped the 2 and it was just called Zombie. So Zombie and Zombie 2 are actually the same movie, and a lot of people get really confused if you say that without context, which understandably so. But Zombie 1 and Zombie 2 are the same movie. Zombie 3 is a whole train wreck. That movie is god fucking awful. But this movie basically was marketed as that, and it shows in the movie a little bit where they try to rope it in a little bit with Romero's stuff, and I mean that in the tiniest possible way, a little bit. But ultimately, this was a movie that kind of revitalized Lucio Fulci's career in a lot of ways. He was a fairly consistent director even before that film came out. He had done a lot of giallos. He'd actually done a decent amount of westerns and children's films, which is kind of disturbing when you think of some of his movies. And I've had him on the list here before with The Beyond. He also did a couple of other good ones in that same series with House by the Cemetery and City of the Living Dead. But the thing with this movie and Fulci is that he did an amazing job with zombie splatter effects, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Keep in mind, this movie was made and came out in 1979, only a year after Dawn of the Dead, and they somehow managed to go on par, if not topping Tom Savini gore effects in 1978. Um, that is a disturbing thing that they were able to actually emulate shit to that point. Although a lot of Italian films were fairly gory and fairly, X-rated, so it didn't really make too terrible an amount of sense that they could adapt to it. But wow, they really outdid themselves in some senses. The zombie effects themselves are amazing for pretty much almost everything in the movie. The effects of like getting bitten by the zombies, all the gore effects. There's a scene where a man in a fucking he's in a zombie costume, but he shoves a fake arm into a real shark's mouth underwater and lets it rip it off. I'm sorry, but you gotta do. Italian people are fucking crazy, and this movie proves that they're fucking crazy. Um, and I say that being partially Italian. But the thing is, like, only you can pay somebody like that, and they must have paid him a lot. I hope they paid him a lot to get in the water with a shark and put a fake limb in its mouth to get it to bite down and rip that limb off. Um, I'm sorry even if you're wearing a shark suit underneath that costume, that is still fucking horrifying. Um, but they have that scene. The big scene that people always like to point out, and it's probably the best scene in the movie, honestly, is the scene where the wife of the main doctor, and I can't remember her goddamn name for whatever reason, but she is alone in her beach house, and the zombies attack, and at a point, a zombie grabs her by the head through a door and pulls her ever closer to a jagged piece of wood, and it basically that wood is lined up with her eyeball. Now, in most horror movies, especially well, because they're Italians, it doesn't matter. But in most American horror movies, or even in most British horror movies, um, you would have something happen there at the end where it would be a really quick cut, or it would cut away before anything would happen, and then you'd find her body later with like a piece of wood shoved in her eye or something. And or you would do something like it would be a thing where like a piece of her hair would rip out and she'd get away. Um, Italians don't give a fuck. So you watch this entire scene, and the whole scene itself. I mean, it feels like it's about an hour long, but it's probably only in reality the going towards the thing was probably only about 30 to 40 seconds. And those 30 to 40 seconds they make last forever in the most squeamish possible way, because you're just watching from her point of view and from the point of view of the spike and from a side view of what is about to happen to this poor woman's eyeball. And that again, that's what kind of makes the scene the actual legitimate seeming look of terror on her face. There is a little bit of a moment that takes you out of it with the special effects, but it's so brief and they cut away from it so quickly that you really barely even kind of notice it if you've been following along with the scene. Um, but that shit goes in. That is that is the best part about it, is like it happens. You get to watch it and they don't cut away. And again, it just makes it even more. And then on top of that, later on, there's gore effects involving, because obviously she dies, but there's gore effects involving her body that are just they are amazingly graphic and disturbing. Um, while I'm saying that too, this movie kind of has this feel about it, because the for those people that aren't really familiar with Italian cinema, all Italian movies are dubbed. They don't record live sound, and that goes back to a whole thing before that, which I'm not going to get into. But basically, at that point in time, that you did not record live sound when you actually were filming the movie. So a lot of what would happen, and because of that, Italians got very good at dubbing into other languages and stuff like that. They were the dubbing capital of Europe, basically, and pretty much the entire European film market. Um, so all of the movie, you can tell that it is dubbed. I'm not gonna lie to you. You can tell that it's dubbed, and you either get used to it or you can't watch the movies. It's one of the two things, because it never changes. I got used to it because I thought it was amusing and funny. But it can be grating on people, and I understand that. But the thing that really, like I said, really does shine in this movie is the effects. And the Italians, if they knew how to do one thing, it was effects. Because even if it was goofy, it still was amazing, because they were playing that shit totally straight most of the time. But like I said, I love Lucio Fulci's Zombie. It's not a very complicated film in terms of story. It's very basic. It's the idea of, okay, you need a plot MacGuffin, which is basically a boat. Get these two people onto Zombie Island, then you got to find a way off Zombie Island. It doesn't need to be complicated though. It's a zombie story. It's all it is just you need people to have an excuse to be running around in a zombie infested hellhole so they can explode undead people's heads all over the wall. That's all you need for that movie. You don't need anything else, and they really they don't overcomplicate it. The only other thing too is that, like most Italian movies, they really don't know how to end things very well. So they just end it with like zombies walking across the Brooklyn Bridge, which is a bit of an odd choice. I mean, I know they do a little bit of an establishing thing earlier on in the movie to kind of establish the zombies in the movie, in the ones that are in New York anyway. But it's just like, okay, so we never heard about any of this, and then I think that the whole thing has like a radio broadcast going on in the background that people are listening to. I mean, it's not as stupid as Zombie 3, where you find out that apparently the radio DJ turned into a zombie, and yet he's still DJing. Which, by the way, Lucio Fulci was involved with that production as well, but unfortunately he got sick, had to drop out halfway through the production, and it wound up, most of the directing duties wound up going to Bruno Mattei, who made a film called Hell of the Living Dead. If you want to know why that movie probably should have been sued, all you need to do is listen to the soundtrack. But I'm kind of going off on a tangent here onto other things, but like I said, about Zombie, it's not a complex movie, but it's a great movie, especially from its effects. And it really did a lot to kind of push that genre on maybe more of an international level. Because, again, Dawn of the Dead did amazing numbers, and it was a big hit in a lot of markets, including Italy. So they always say imitation is the highest form of flattery. Well, I guess the Italians were just flattered by everybody. Um, but basically, that's just kind of it. Again, check it out. Great movie. If you're not a gore person or you're not a zombie person, I wouldn't prescribe it. But again, I'd say just check it out along with a lot of Fulci's other movies that are really, really good. Pick a lot of things from his filmography. Even if it's not great, it's still going to be completely batshit fucking insane. But like I said, that's just kind of my thing about it. Put your thoughts in the comments below. Do you like Fulci's work? Do you not like his work? Are you a fan of Zombie? Have you seen the film? Have you not? Put your thoughts in the comments below. As usual, I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications. Hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?